Hello, my name is Dr. Tom McCloskey, and I'm here today to present part 3 of the Challenge of Islam. This is a brief story of Muslims in America and their seeking of the American dream in a time of worldwide violence and conflict relating to their religion. We will consider the stories of two men from Egypt and Iraq who are now in charge of Islamic centers in New York and Dearborn, Michigan. In the light of their stories, we will take a summary look at the number of Muslims coming to this country, the time frame and origin of their immigration, the current status of their income and educational achievement levels. We will conclude with real and perceived differences with the ideals of America. American Crescent is the fascinating story of Imam Kazimi's life and work. Our story begins in Iraq at the Shrine of Karbala, where Imam Kazimi was born in 1965. This is a world-famous shrine for the Shia branch of Islam, where his family has served in spiritual leadership since the time of Muhammad. At the time of the death of Muhammad, there was a question as to who would succeed him. Would it be family, Shiite, or election, Sunni? The first caliph, Abu Bakr, was a prominent companion of Muhammad. He was succeeded by two more with short reigns. Imam Ali, who was family, becomes the fourth caliph. He's killed by a former supporter. And then someone from the Umayyad clan contests this family clan. And later, the son of Ali, Imam Hussein, and his brother, Imam Hussein, are killed in contests with the Umayyad armies. A shrine is erected at Karbala to the family Shiite partisans. A shrine is built over Imam Ali's tomb in Karbala. The Shiite Ali, or the partisans of Ali, continue as rivals. This is the origin of Sunnis, 90%, and Shiites, 10% of Muslims worldwide, but with an important concentration in the Middle East. The 12th one, the successor of Ali, is al-Mahdi. He goes into occultation or hiding at the age of 6. Legend has it that he's still among us, but will return with Jesus to begin a campaign of justice and reform. Imams have the privilege of ijtihad, ability to search out God's will anew, and so there's a development in Shiite Muslims. I continue now in the words of Imam Kazimi. The Prophet Muhammad is my great-great ancestor through 39 generations. My father and others have been associated with the shrine at Karbala for hundreds of years. I was born there in 1965. My father was advised by Governor Maliki to flee from the wrath of Saddam Hussein. We were able to find refuge in Kuwait in 1971. Later in Iran in 1980, and later in California in 1992. I assisted my father and I got a degree in sociology in addition to trying to become fluent in English. I succeeded the distinguished Imam Chiri in 1997 in Dearborn, Michigan. A week after Saddam Hussein was overthrown, my father returned to serve as the chief imam at the shrine in Karbala. Dearborn is located in the state of Michigan at the western end of Detroit. In coming to Dearborn, I developed the Islamic Center of America, and I discovered that there are two basic groups of Muslims, those who are largely Arabic speakers and English speakers. While it is easy to reach the older generation, the challenge is with the youth and trying to make Islam relevant to life in America. The best country is the one that treats you well, is an old saying of Islam. I believe that America qualifies for that because while there are obvious differences, we have much in common. Dearborn is the home of the Ford Motor Company, which built a gigantic plant in River Rouge in 1927. Lebanese families were the first to come to the area in the 20s, and in the 70s, Palestinians, Yemenis, Iraqis, and other Arabs followed in substantial numbers. While the restaurants, businesses, newspapers, and social centers were very strong, many people would leave behind their religious faith. 90% of the students at one of the high schools is currently Arabic. This Muslim community wanted to start a school and have a strong outreach to youth. Terrorist attacks by radicals from the Arab community on the World Trade Center in 1991 and the U.S. Embassy in 1998 were simultaneous to my first visits and arrival as Imam of the community. We completed our building of the Islamic Center of America and had our dedication in May of 2005. Governor Granholm, Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant leaders were in attendance and helped to dedicate our center, which now serves 350,000 Arab Americans south and west of Detroit. We have a 70,000 square foot center built in the Arabic style with white sandstone and a grand golden central dome. Our mosque holds 1,000 people and our banquet hall another 2,000 people. We now have 340 students enrolled in our K-12 school. It is a tribute to the hard work, generosity, and ingenuity of our people. On a community level, I've had very many requests from the non-Arab community to respond to concerns of terrorist Arabs, the proper nature of Islam, the war in Iraq, and a variety of issues. I've met with Vice President Gore, President Clinton, and many times with President George Bush. While it is not my desire to involve myself in politics, I believe I have no choice when it comes to important issues of fair treatment for all our citizens. I and many Arab Americans encounter grave suspicions and discomfort in our travels due to a legitimate concern about terrorism. We admit to having extremists in our Muslim communities. In the summer of 2001, I agreed to host a group of about 20 students from the Gulf countries. I was in another office when they arrived, and I heard the shouts of "Mushrik, idol worshippers!" They had seen pieces of clay for prayer and realized they were in a Shia mosque. I looked out the window and saw them prostrate on the lawn, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at these future leaders. The Wahhabis follow an extreme form of Islam which is beyond Sunni. They are a key influence in the Middle East because they have so many guest workers that come to work in the oil, and with their oil wealth, they are able to fund many radical Islam schools around the world. There are 46 countries where Muslims are in the majority. Only one, Saudi Arabia, allows no churches. 20 to 40% of Saudi Arabia are Wahhabi Muslims. They have religious police. Osama bin Laden and the core of Al-Qaeda come from largely Saudi Arabia. On a visit to Iraq in July 2004, I discovered that my grandfather had been tortured and murdered in a prison under Saddam Hussein. I and my two sons met with the supreme religious leader of Muslims in Iraq, Ayatollah Sistani, and I told him of our work. He responded, "That is good, but you must now build an Islamic university so that their education can be complete." Americans are very generous in their charitable giving. In a recent year, citizens gave $248 billion for various charitable projects. Islam as well emphasizes the importance of charitable giving and the tithe. My brothers and I have purchased land, and we are starting an orphanage in Karbala to respond to some 27,000 orphans in that city. My father had cardiac surgery in the U.S., and he's now pledged to start a cardiac medical center, which would be the first in southern Iraq for heart surgery. Much remains to be done, but we are hopeful. We move now to New York for an example of a Sufi Muslim imam and his efforts in that city. First, we turn to some background on the Sufi tradition. In the development of Islam, spirituality and a dialogue with philosophy play a role. Abu Hamad al-Ghazali was a jurist, theologian, and a teacher from northern Iran who first served at a university. He studies the philosophy of his day and its efforts to reconcile faith and reason. He has a crisis of faith and leaves on a personal pilgrimage which takes him to Mecca and then Syria for 10 years. The word Sufi is the Arabic word for wool, which refers to the simple garments that many of its practitioners wore. Al-Ghazali integrates elements of Sufi teaching into his life and takes a broader view of Islam, which is more centered in a pursuit of God's love through art, music, dance, and poetry, as well as the Quran. He writes Revival of the Religious Sciences to describe that path. And he recognizes the truth as being valid wherever it comes from: science, the arts, physics, philosophy, and he is especially open to dialogue with people of other faiths. This, of course, is most important today. In Sufi Islam, they concentrate on ihsan, beauty, which means mastery and proficiency. The Sufis emphasize spiritual growth. There's a saying that you need right virtue, loving God with all your heart, and you need right loving. Love your Jesus, your soul, and not your body, the donkey. After the destruction of the World Trade Center on 9/11/2001, the imam of a local mosque, Faisal Rauf, was invited by various communities to dialogue with leaders in the Northeast on the relation of Muslims to America. In the spirit of cooperation among Muslims, Christians, and Jews in 12th century Spain, he believes that we need to recover and rediscover that same spirit today. He has named his presence the Cordova Initiative, which is now a worldwide initiative. Faisal is the author of What's Right with Islam is What's Right with America, which offers an agenda to begin a dialogue on building a better world. One of his points is that the various immigrant communities in the U.S. have helped to adapt Christianity, Judaism, and Catholicism to the American soil, and they in turn have helped to reshape their faith and have an impact with the new structures of their churches and synagogues on a worldwide level. Islam needs to develop its contributions with its own synthesis of religion and American culture. It needs time, space, and a climate which will allow it to carry out this process. The core beliefs of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, overlap. Love God with your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Two powerful ideas arose in Europe by the 17th century that formed the core of its institutional support for the Second Commandment. Number one, the notion that reasonable interest on a monetary loan does not amount to usury. an idea that made possible a certain system of banking. And number two, the invention of the corporation as a separate person with shareholders who are protected from responsibility for limited liability, unpaid debt or crime incurred by the company. He believes that there should be economic freedom, freedom from poverty, which is a fundamental challenge for Muslims worldwide. The rule of law for Muslims worldwide is very important. This includes justice, security, and freedom from fear. Number three, broader public participation in decisions making and governing their country. Number four, Muslims badly need a separation of powers policy in their countries. There should be an independent judiciary, an independent economy. The military should be under control of the government. There should be free press and freedom of speech. There should be freedom of religious expression. Islam agrees with the Declaration of Independence and Thomas Jefferson that our guiding values should be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that they are embedded in the human heart. Today, America can be a great policeman or a great conciliator. These are important avenues: cooperation, multilateralism, dialogue, and building friendships. Faisal has brought this message to the New York area to build bridges to the different religious and ethnic communities. He directs youth training leadership at a retreat center on the Hudson River. He travels the world and is a featured speaker at international symposia on Islam and its relations with other religions and its life in various countries. The commonality of the two imams follows. Both of them have a deep belief in Islam, its development in history, its dedication to science, math, and education in general. They are open to dialogue with the Western world. They have a worldwide vision on development of third world countries. They're willing to share their stories and build bridges across cultures to be part of the American dream. They are advocates for fair treatment for members of their communities. They believe that Islam and the American dream are compatible and that the U.S. supports the core values which Islam supports. I have tried to put to rest some of the stereotypes of Muslims, that Islam is a violent religion, Islamic culture is sexist by nature, Muslims are more committed to their tribe or country than a Western country in Europe or the U.S. Islam and terrorists are connected by nature. Muslims wish to remain separate with their language, religion, culture, and family loyalties, and that hatred of the U.S. is part of their culture. It is important to note that most Americans of Arab descent are Christians and not Muslims. 34% of Muslims come from Southeast Asia. 26% are Arab Americans. 20% native-born Black Americans. 20% come from Africa, Turkey, Iran, and elsewhere. The total Muslim American population runs between 3 and 6 million, and Barack Obama recently stated that it was 7 million. Americans need to know some basic truths about our Muslim community. The average U.S. income per family is $50,000. 20% of our people have BA degrees, and 80% are registered voters. The Muslim community in the U.S. average income is $80,000. 60% have BA degrees, and 80% are registered voters. So, The majority of Muslim Americans are well educated and well paid. They work in medicine in our universities and research, computers, entrepreneurs, and many other fields. They are not prone to violent revolution. President Obama talks about Islam's gifts. As a student of history, I also know civilization's debt to Islam. It was Islam at places like Al-Azhar that carried the light of learning through so many centuries, paving the way for Europe's Renaissance and Enlightenment. It was innovation in Muslim communities that developed the order of algebra, our magnetic compass, tools of navigation, our mastery of pens and writing, our understanding of how disease spreads and how it can be healed. Islamic culture has given us artistic arches and soaring spires, timeless poetry, and cherished music. And throughout history, Islam has demonstrated through words and deeds the possibilities of religious tolerance and racial equality. Now, much has been made of the fact that an African American with the name Barack Hussein Obama could be elected president. But my personal story is not so unique. The dream of opportunity for all people has not come true for everyone in America, but its promise exists for all who come to our shores. Moreover, freedom in America is indivisible from the freedom to practice one's religion. That is why there is a mosque in every state in our union and over 1,200 mosques within our borders. So let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America, and I believe that America holds within her the truth that regardless of race, religion, or station in life, all of us share common aspirations to live in peace and security, to get an education, and to work with dignity, to love our families, our communities, and our God. I conclude with a story from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They have a Muslim community of Lebanese dating back to the 1890s. They constructed the first mosque in the country in 1934. Here is a statement from that community. America's Muslims wait for the day people will talk about America as Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim. Until the present, Muslims have not played an effective role as a community in the nation's political process. They will eventually achieve the participation and recognition that thus far has been denied them. Bridge building goes both ways, Muslims to Americans, Americans to Muslims. Full citizenship is natural and inevitable in a country based on ideals of freedom and equality. The American experience molds the Muslim community into a group of citizens fully responsive to those ideals. Those same Muslim citizens will themselves increasingly hold their country accountable to their own aspirations for equal status. Thank you for joining me in this presentation today. This is part of a 4-part series, Islam 1, Father Abraham, Islam 2, the Middle East today, Islam 3, Muslims in America, and the final, Religion and Globalization.